All right, 3:12. What's
3:12.
that one?
So it kind of goes back to our earliest ancestors, Adam and Eve, and asks the question: did Adam die on the day he ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil? 2:17 says yes of Genesis, while 3:6 and 5:5 say no. The main crux to the confusion here seems to be from Genesis 2:17. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in that day that you eat of it you shall surely die. And then afterwards we understand that that they eat of the fruit of the tree, and that Adam lives to a ripe old age of 930 years old, and then he dies. So what's going on here? He ate from the food and he didn't die. Surely he didn't.
Yeah.
And don't call me Shirley.
Yeah. Okay, Shirley. So Lyle points out here that this is a failure to read the text carefully, right? And he says this is a common state. The Bible not only does not actually state that Adam would die instantly or on the day. It just says in the day, right, that he would die when he ate the fruit. And so the word surely here, surely, you shall surely die, he points out, is an important qualifier. And it's a good way to translate a difficult Hebrew phrase, which is most literally rendered, dying you shall die. Yeah. Dying you shall die, right? So, yes, the Hebrew word die is used twice, indicating the certainty of it. It's not the death that would occur on that day, but rather death became certain and unavoidable on the day that he ate. So this, again, on the day that you eat, you shall surely die. Dying, you shall die, right? Mm-hmm. So one way to explain this, and I think a good way to explain this, is we might say that in terms of spiritually, he died. And then later on, and he physically died.
Yeah, there were many changes that resulted from the fall. Yeah. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, obviously, all those things. I mean, the entire creation groans out because of that simple act that changes everything. It turns, plants from having no spines to, spindles and thorns and everything like that. It turns plant-eating based animals to carnivores. I mean, it causes people to deteriorate. They're in the process,
and the
of
earth to
dying.
deteriorate.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad fact to say when children are first born, they're starting their life, but at the same time they're starting their death march, because 10 out of 10 people don't get out of this world alive, and we shouldn't take it that seriously then.
But so the idea of dying, it has to do with separation, right? Physical death is the separation of the spirit from the body, right? They're ripped apart. Mm-hmm. And spiritual death, that's what makes it so agonizing. Spiritual death, really, Adam had a certain type of relationship with God that then was ripped apart, as a result of this particular sin. And so he died spiritually, we might say, immediately, and then we see the consequences of that in his physical death later on.
Yeah, well, and we see kind of the reverse of that, but in the same tearing that we see when Christ dies, the veil of the temple, which is kind of the separation between man and God, being torn from the top down. So there you even have a rending of the separation that occurs in Adam, but instead God takes death and rends it out of the hands of.
So he destroys that separation, right? He rents it apart, and now he allows us to have that same kind of relationship, the spiritual relationship that Adam had originally. We're allowed to have that as a result of the sacrifice of Christ.
Yeah, there's a lot of good parallels that we see, and I was just reading a good book by G.K. Beale talking about showing here's the job that Adam did in the garden, and what that meant as him being the first priest and the first kind of gardener, and what that all meant, and how Christ comes to fulfill it. It was a really interesting read.
Yeah, and so Lyle points out that Adam's death was assured on the day that he ate. Perhaps, he says, a good paraphrase into modern English would be, on the very day you ate of it, you will become mortal, right? And so, therefore, you will eventually die, right? Something like that. So, no contradiction there. Sorry, critic.